Yeah, Kees has been already on the Treff beforehand, a couple of years ago, and yeah, we have been establishing since then some online class system, which is also main sponsor of this platform. More on that later, or in the between, let's see. And yeah, we thought that it would be only a good idea to show a bit like what is happening in the courses and also give you some teaser so you might consider to support the main sponsor of this event. Maybe you learn something on the way.
Okay, thanks again for being here a second time. The subject of the Madonna of Zwolle was first introduced when I was being filmed for national television, and that turned out to be a figure that is kind of like a Maria figure. This is her. So this has been shown on live television, and it's quite of a rough sculpture, but it's all about the female form. Now, the last time we did the Treff a few years ago, I focused on a way to approach a human figure based on a sculpture from Doug Linker, or an approach to do a sculpture from Doug Linker that is like for a male figure with a beard. And we thought it would be a nice touch to like focus on the female figure. And that is what this Treff will be about. So how to rough out and create the female figure and what it is to think and work around. Let's first go to the origin of this technique. So years ago, I got a request to forge nuns out of a bar of stock, and I actually have the original here. So this is the original nun in a very abstract approach forged out of a square. I have one more nun lying around here somewhere for some more clothes. So as you can see, the figure is quite square. I have another subject right here. We have quite a dynamic shape. But if you look at it from the top view, it's still forged from a square. That gives the character a certain amount of depth, even though this is very abstract and being done with a striker on the anvil. So it's a two-team forging operations. So I discovered, in the same way as I do faces for the male figures, how I can use these 45 degrees. And then later, when I started forging them out of a round stock, so here you have another early sketch I did out of round stock, I still have that square approach. It doesn't show up as clearly, but the square is still there. So if you look at the point of the nose, it is still like a square. And after that, we still think about it in these two dimensions. Because squares are nice because you can break the angles and go to octagon, but rounds are nice because you can go everywhere. I started to develop this method further. Here we have some step-by-step programs in steel. Later on, I'll demonstrate these in wax. So we start with a taper and then an angle in there. We start to push that hair further backwards, like so. But you can see, even though we're working on round stock, we're still thinking square because we still have those angles. The beauty about those angles, so now we take another indentation for the nose. And here we have the figure with the details. So I'm hoping that progression in the face, at least. I know I'm going really fast about subjects that we go deeper into the video. That is how the face and these actions are done. So yeah, shows up nicely. Of course, the facial features of female characters are quite a bit more subtle. So in a way, if you have like a male character in the face and in the body, the features of the face and body are like angular and more harsh, so more easily defined. While if you wanted to create something soft like a female character, that is quite challenging. Of course, this is not really compatible with forging of the female characters we'll cover today, but these are. So here we have a lady that isn't especially curvy, but she's definitely female. Well, if you take a look at this character that isn't completely finished, you can see that there are more curves. And even though the facial features aren't really there yet, you can see that in the butt and in the chest area, these curves are very important in establishing a language in shapes that is female. Now, what makes a character female? What makes her a Madonna? Of course, the chest and the buttocks are the obvious thing to think about, but even more important are the shoulders. Even with a character like this is like a teenage girl, and the chest isn't quite visible. Neither is the buttocks, but that's because it's like a younger character, probably somewhere in puberty, but still the character is most definitely female. In a way, we establish a language in gesture and a language in shapes in the facial features. There is a language in shapes and gesture all around the body, and once you establish just like the rhythm of that gesture, this one, you can see there are more curves going on there. We need to stick with it. I'm gonna start demonstrating some stuff with sculpting wax. So sculpting wax is a great simulator to simulate forging processes. Of course, we don't roll steel like this, but if you just want to get started with like a bar, then that is quite convenient. Now, it's important to note that I'm sticking to operations that are like blacksmithing compatible in wax. So I can't do like fine detail stuff on the surface without worrying about what's happening on the back. But right now, I'm using my tiny anvil and my vise to do the solo forging approach. Of course, you could also do these approaches with the hydraulic press, with a jackhammer, or with a power hammer. Anything goes, or with a striker. Of course, a really good striker is like really valuable when doing blacksmithing. And these principles still apply. I also know that there are lots of people doing awesome work with guillotine tools, which can also be utilized for this process, but let's right now just try to stick to the steps. So we start with a bar. Now, first step is that we taper that bar on the end, not really forging it into a point. Or maybe if you're planning on some really interesting hair. So this is just forging a normal square taper on a round bar. Now we take one of these, the edges of the square taper, and we go over the outer edge of the anvil and hit it across the diagonal. So we're here. Of course, this can also be done in the vise if you want to be really sure where you're going. So right now we're over here. Of course, I also have the steel sample. You can see I went a bit deeper, but in the end, it's very similar. Now, because we have a character with long hair, it's actually quite a bit easier when doing a female character, because then you have something to push all the volume of the bar against. If you're doing a male character with a tiny head on some large shoulders, it's quite a bit more challenging. Next up, we are going to the vise. Then we come in with some fullers. I have different radii. And we first start by carving out like a V shape coming from the point of our first isolation. So it's like our first isolation was like a straight angle. And that isolation points, so if you have the steel one here, towards a V shape that we will carve around the angle there. So just do this symmetrically. After we've done that, we continue until like an M or a reverse W shape. And it's almost like we're unwrapping a present and pushing that hair further back. So again, first a V, then continue into like an M shape. Let's just show what we got. I might have done well to do like a bit of a bigger radius fuller on the back here. So whenever you're working on a vise, always remember that you're working on two planes, the back and the front. Because whenever you're hitting somewhere something with an amount of force, an equal and opposite force will be pressed against the back of the work. So that is something you need to be aware of. Well, let's quickly talk about this whole vise philosophy here. So when doing figurative forgings, we work a lot on the vise, and that means we need some kind of support or back support, because otherwise things in the vise will start moving around and stuff. There are, of course, exceptions, and there are many ways around this problem. This is, of course, a very well-known problem in blacksmithing. My preferred method of back support is by having these two taps on the back jaw, so I can put any diameter of stock in there, and that means that I have like an infinite choice of like pullers that I can use to support the work and create the shape that I want. Let's quickly move on to isolating a bit more of the rest of the body before we go back to the face. I have moved the work upwards a bit, supporting the piece on where I want the hair to end. Now, when you look at a typical Madonna figure, we don't look at the shape itself, we look at the surroundings, we look at the silhouettes. And we can actually see that if you have like a big hair and a big butt up there, down there, that there's like a symmetrical isolation here. So this is something you could do with like a guillotine tool, a smithing magician, a set of medium-sized fullers that you use for forging hammers. It's just a symmetrical squeeze right there. And that's important. I have moved my back support on where I want that to be, and I'm pushing this, if you will, into the stomach. I'm pushing the bosom up, and isolating the air, the hair, and also isolating the beginning of what will be the buttocks. So if you look at the shape itself, it might not look like anything, but if you look at the silhouettes, stuff is happening. Very interesting. I'm not quite done with this position yet, because I can also use this position to isolate the arms. So I'm hoping this is all clear. So we have the bosom here, and then I go from the side like that, and like that, with pretty much the same radius fuller. So you can see where these angles are going. Now, right now I'm doing this like it's a step-by-step program. First you do this, then you do that. That is not what blacksmithing is about. As we all know, if you like, if you take like bladesmithing, when I'm forging a knife, I only use like 4 angles, 4 operations for any knife. If it's a kitchen knife, if it's any knife, but how long I forge it and how deep I go depends on what kind of knife it will be. So this is like the same thing. Right now I'm going for a very generic, really curvy Madonna-like figure. So you can see I want those curves. I want them. But if you have like a younger character, the curves won't be as present. Or if you have like a character that isn't essential, for example, the nun that we started with, we don't want those curves there. But the angles are still there. The anatomy, if you will, is still there. Now let's go back to the head. Since I don't want to like crush the back of the head, I'll take a bit of a bigger radius. Let's take this other sample. And maybe I even want to like support it lower or support it higher, depending on where I am. I can correct mistakes in this step, if you will. It all depends as long as I'm aware of it. Now we take a bit of a sharper fuller, and remember the V that we started with, and then we get back to the M shape. Like it's almost like a McDonald's M, like duck, duck. I don't know how else to reverberate it. I go to the top of the points of the V from earlier, and I isolate it a bit more. We go there and there. And maybe sometimes if I feel like I have too much of an indentation over there, I can just angle my piece in any way I like. That's one of the things I like about working with round stuff. So if I find that I'm going too far in the negative, we're here. Now, of course, now we have this edge. That's going to be the nose. And that means that the whole mouth area is going to be about there. And when we start with the mouth area, don't forge shit like a hollow. Forge it like a ridge. Because then when we break it up later, we'll have lips. All right. Now we go a bit more up like this, isolating the hair. So we extend the points of the M we forged upwards, but we keep a small amount of material for the nose. So when you want to forge like a nose, you can't like forge it outwards. You can only forge inwards. Forge around the area we want to have like a high area, and everything else has to be forged down. Of course. Let's recap for a bit. We have the M shape that defines the chin and pushes the hair backwards. Then from the points of the M, we go upwards and isolate the hair from the head. Now, I can't really go into depth of forging like eyes and stuff. And also, in general, when I'm forging a character, I think it's best left out, because when you're doing eyes, you can get that creepy stare, while if you're going for more of an abstract feel, like this has a bit more detailed eyes, but there's a stare there. It's a risky move. Not saying it's wrong, but you have been warned. But if you look at a character like this, like the eyes aren't there, but there's definitely a character there. I always have the feeling that when you leave a detail like a detailed eye more into the abstract, people will fill it in themselves. While if you fill in the eye, then it might become like a really toony character. Here we can see some details of the face, but I wanted to like focus more on the figures. Now, remember that because up or down doesn't matter. So I can move the character around as long as I'm aware where I support it. So we can see that here we have the hollow of the neck. And we already, by pushing the hair backward, created a line that will define where the hair is going to be. So all we need to do is follow that line, and the hair will just magically flow there. We start with a bit of a larger radius fuller, and then maybe we want to follow up with chisels. Go as sharp as you want. Just remember that if you go for a sharper tool, you'll go for a more detailed tool. Now, once you have defined the outlines, we can create these wavy patterns. Again, I might want to start out with larger fullers, then go back with sharper chisels. And what I like to do when I'm doing hair is that I create first a couple of bigger isolations that's like a wave of hair, and then coming back and creating more detailed carvings. But you can create like these really lifelike flowsy effects. Now maybe I wanted to go back to the top But now I do need to be careful, because if I go back to the top, then I definitely don't want my support to be at a place where I did details earlier on, because then I will just delete those details, and that's quite frustrating. Yeah. And remember that hair flows. So always stay away from parallel lines. Parallel lines scream like mechanical. While when you have like these lines that like feather out in radii, then it seems like life. And it's almost like we're beating life into our fortunes. Like I might even want to go as crazy as going in with a center punch and punching in some nostrils, because we're crazy like that. But that is a bit beyond the scope of this video. What I mostly wanted to focus on for this is when you're doing females, create those curves. It's much more dynamic. So especially when you're almost done, you can like really have fun with it by extending it. Maybe you want to twist it around and create like this dancing figure. So don't be afraid to go a bit bold at the end. Like if you, for example, look at this figure. It's pretty rough, but there's like a wave of motion in there. That's what we want. Curves, dynamic, balances.
From Beth Holmberg, which kind of sculpting wax are you using? I've seen many hardnesses or types at the art store.
There are many different kinds. Usually I stick to the blacker stuff. The beauty about working with sculpting wax is that when you work it, it becomes warmer and it reacts more like warm steel. While if I want to do the details finer, we didn't get around that, but if I wanted to go further into detail, I would just dunk it into some water, maybe put it in the refrigerator, and when it's cooler, it behaves much more like steel when chiseling. In general, I like to stay away from the browner stuff and like to use the blacker stuff. Of course, these sculpting waxes are targeted to be used by lost wax casting, which is interesting in and of itself, because I can just as easily just send up this character and have it in bronze or any metal that can be cast using the lost wax casting method. But then again, we are blacksmiths, so casting is not nice to metal.
Florian Reiner says, I think the term is plastiline.
I'm not sure. I think that's more like the
I think plastiline is the gray stuff which I have here, and talking from experience, it's fantastic forging simulator if one does very rough sketching. It's not so useful for this working with these details.
Yeah. Well, you can use it, but I like the wax better. Also because like when you get it dirty, you can recycle it by just casting it again. The gray stuff is nice, but you need to work a bit cleaner because it tends to get dirty over time. Also, it degenerates over time.
So Florian, no, I have it in black, tried, and it was nice. I do try yours. I try it. There has come another question by Carl West. How many heats does it take to do a piece like this? And how dark do you let it get before going back to the forge?
It's always half of the heats I did it in last time. So if I do it again, it's half of the heats. So every time, it's amazing. The thing is that it's no fun in forging the exact same figure that we did before that, so it doesn't really count. Now, the temperature that we work this with, it depends on what we want to do. So if I am in the beginning of my forgings and I'm doing the preform, so I'm not really interested about the shape. I just wanted to get the volume where I need it. I wanted to have it nice, hot and yellow, almost to a burn, so I can really move that material easily. And if I'm still in that phase, if it's like starting to become like a dull orange, I put it back into the fire because I want that high heat. Now, as we move through the process, we start to work more detailed, and I don't need to move as much material as I need to on a yellow heat. But if I do put on like a bright yellow heat, I will lose a lot of detail to scale. And it is quite frustrating when you're trying to create detail and losing detail as fast as you can create it. In general, you start at the higher heats and then you move to the lower heats. And especially when you're working with details like hairs, and you can practically do that cold. Just remember that if you do work at a colder temperature and are a bit too greedy, you can get like cold shots and tears. You really just need to get a feel for it. And when you're hit it, I often have like a 1, 2, 3 rhythm of hitting. So the first hit, it's just establishing, do I have contact with the work? Are my angles lining up? Or is the work maybe a bit loose on the vise? Then the second hit is a bit more firm. And the third hit ends exactly where I want to be. Now, if by the second hit I feel I can't like get deep enough, can't get enough heat to do what I need to do, then I go back into the fire and I try to like set up the work the exact same way as I was, and then I can again go with the first hit, figuring out alignment. Second hit, am I sturdy? Third hit, exactly right. So the hits and the heat need to line up. So if I feel in the second hit that my material is like butter, I need to be a bit more conservative with the last hit being on target. So it's always tack, 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 tack. 1, 2, 3. Unless you're working with a jackhammer, then you just go on full auto. The pneumatic jackhammers I like to use, maybe some of you have seen me use them. It's probably a subject for another evening because I can talk for that for hours. But like the heat and the hit need to align. So if I need to like move a lot of material, and I have like I have a really nice hydraulic press that's really precise and powerful in just the right way. So I can do quite a lot at a dull red heat with that. And I can see the material move from the core. So that's cool. But if I would forge a character like that by hand, I would take a higher heat because I can't hit as high as much as I can squeeze with my hydraulic press. So the hit and the heat, they kind of balance each other out up to a certain point. Like if your work is too cold, it's too cold. And if you go on and just start hitting it harder, it will crack. And if your material is like really up to a crisp burn and you need to work those fine details, you lose those details as soon as you can forge them in. So you'll go nowhere.
The arms that stick up on the vise and hold your fuller in bars, what do they look like for real?
I have a picture of them on my Instagram. There are many approaches possible, but if I just describe them, I just screwed a bit with my vise, which some might consider to be vise. I tapped holes in there and there. I have these 2 taps that stand out like that. Of course, different solutions are possible. These are just stand-ins and made out of wood. They are fixed with magnets. So I can demonstrate this. So I can just put any piece of round stuck in there, and because most of the force is pointed towards the vise, you don't need to have like ultra heavy threaded rod in there or bolts in there to make this work. But if you go to my Instagram post I did a couple of years ago about exactly this, and I also talked about it a bit in different articles. Of course, there are also because this is a very well-known problem in blacksmithing, and there are different solutions to it. Many of them work. Patrick Beck also has published an article about doing a fixture like this. As long as you have some kind of back support and are aware of the force that you're applying on that, it's fine. What I like about my way is that I can use any kind of round stuff. Now remember, if I wanted to do like if I want to be more aggressive, I use a smaller surface area. If I want to be more conservative and conserve my the surface profile of the bottom of my work, I want to have a larger surface area. So if I needed to get into like a tiny detail, like let's say I put support there like that, and I'm using a tool with a similar radius, then both surfaces will distort equally. So if I use like a 1 centimeter piece of stock in my vise and fuller with 1 centimeter or half an inch, I should say, most of you are American, on the top, then the distortion of the work will be equal. If I use a bigger piece of material on the bottom and a smaller piece of material on smaller, fuller on the top, then I'll be more aggressive on the top. If I use a smaller piece of material, like when you're cutting material with a hot cut hardy, you don't want the top to distort at all. So you use the widest side of your hammer. But your hot cut hardy that stands on the anvil, that's a very small surface area. So most of the material, the penetration is done on the bottom. And of course, you can go with anything in between. Oh, West is showing something. Let's check it out.
Yeah, it looks something like this.
Yeah.
It can look something like this in
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. I know
I'm
this
imagining a jaw protector. This is just cardboard, but a jaw protector bent such that now it's just standing up there. That's just a Cheez-It box. But that's my thinking. 2 of those, one left, one right. Put them how you like.
So it's a good concept. There are many variations on getting around this problem. I like the one that Black Bear Forge came with it. It's quite a well-known YouTuber. The problem is when we pull the work out of the fire, ideally we want to have like 1 second between pulling the work out of the fire and working the material. And if we're fidgeting with the fixture on the vise, we're losing precious heat. Whatever your solution is. Magnets. Well, I'm not sure those are going to be sturdy enough. But if it works for you, it works for you.
Carl's going to make it work.
Yeah. So what works for me is the 2 tabs because they're the least amount in the way. They're stuck there. I can just slam in any material I need to act as a bottom fuller. Again, it works for me. I'm not saying it's the best approach. It involves really screwing into the jaws of your vise that some might consider to be vise. Then again, I'm having so much fun with this setup since it has so many applications. You can also put in another piece of stock in there and have it like use a chisel or a punch as like an angled stake and going in there without it moving around.
Florian Reinhardt has posted, I agree. I have one like a protector too. Magnets lose strength by heat, and Kees' setup is solving it best to my meaning his eyes.
Also, we have the problem that anything that is magnetic in a forging shop slowly transforms into a porcupine.
Yes.
This is like at least my experience. So it'll keep the rest of
right.
cleaner, but then there's that.
One of the things, I guess this is a comment as much as a question. The thing that I have seen at demonstrations in the US for figure work is an angled block that goes into the vise. Yeah. And it's great for supporting the back, but what I love about yours is that variable fuller lets it become so much more of a tool. Where the angled block, it's flat, so it's always leading. It encourages the back to flatten if the back changes at all. And this is a really elegant top bottom tool thing. It's really nice.
You're absolutely right, and that's what I like about it. Now, if you're doing a lot of work where you know there's always a flat surface, the 45-degree back support fixture will work just fine. It's just that with this kind of work, it's so dynamic, especially when doing the female character, and you don't have any flat support to work around. You might have noticed that with the detailing, we also work from the top to the bottom, because even with the dynamic support possibilities where we can go around underneath the chin and stuff, we still tend to like easily destroy those details we hard-stakingly put in there. So that's what I like about this. And there are also variations that kind of do this, that don't involve permanently adapting the device. I've also often used these with demos, but that's a whole other subject. But at least as long as you have the concept of something where you can just put in any stock that you like in there, that is like vital if you wanted to like really get into that dynamic kind of forgings. And you can still put in the 45-degree angle steel or whatever when you want to do like fine chisel work. It's like it has all the benefits of other solutions, but then you can do so much more. Like the stake mod that I discussed earlier. So when I just put in a fuller like this, I can actually use that like sheet work, and it still has that support in there. Any problem you can turn around, and I often put in hammers and chisels and stuff, but like when you're working with the vise, they tend to like slowly rotate over time. So that's where this comes in handy.
How are these lovely sculptures being used?
For me, it's like it has become like my my signature style. So since I've become known for this kind of work, I have commissions for this kind of work. Of course, when customers wants to have these kind of figures as an ornament for a piece of like a garden fence or anything, it will certainly make your forgings stand out. I've been selling most of these pieces as art as is, since they're quite detailed. The challenge of a skill we like doing is always finding an application, isn't it?
Well, there's one more comment by Paul, and it's interesting how you took us along in your work process. Thank you. And I would say you have been doing another thing with this style of work, and that's teaching it.
Yeah.
If you like this, what you have been seeing today, you might consider going to the biggest sponsor so far at the moment of this Blacksmith Without Borders project, which you can find right here at beatlifeintoyourforging.com. And get courses, like there at the moment are 2 courses available where you can dig deeper into this topic. And they're a bit similar
many
than
different
today.
like it. I think the next one up is we take a deep dive into animal heads, which is going to be a lot of fun. A bit different than the human characters. We have different courses for that, and if you have any ideas or requests for courses, we would be happy to like collaborate and oblige. We also do private sessions because like you might have noticed, this kind of work tends to go deep and detailed, and there's lots of things coming together, but this is like what we could do.
If you want to support this project by booking one of these courses, this is fantastic. If you think that's a bit too much for me at this moment, but you still like to support this Blacksmith Without Borders project, we have this amazing Ko-fi page, which some people have been using already. Thanks to everyone who did this. You make it possible that this project continues. The thing is, every little amount helps. If it's only €5, $5, $3, whatever fits you, it's more than zero. And it takes, it takes the load from Paul and me who are running this show otherwise. Financially, it's fantastic if you do so. If you get something out of it, and as said in the beginning, if there come at any given point enough donations, we might come back to editing the videos frequently. If there is enough budget for that, no problems there.
A reminder for anybody who's in the US, the link works, but I found that it doesn't tend to work with credit cards. It gives you 2 payment options, directly with a credit card or through your PayPal. And it didn't work with any credit cards from the US that we were able to do it. But as soon as I used my PayPal account, I paid with a credit card, and it was totally good. And that made it very easy to make the donation to help support the few €100 a year that this fantastic resource needs.